All right. Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Fire Breathing Rob. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and also share this video. We're trying to get the word out for these great candidates that we're interviewing. So we appreciate that. If you're listening to us on another platform, radio, or also on Instagram or Facebook, thank you so much. And also share that too, please. We greatly appreciate that. So I got to say, I just found out about Michelle. We're going to be talking to her in just a second, Michelle Raynor, and she is running for Florida House District 70, and she is dynamic and great. You guys are going to love her today, and I'm going to introduce her right now. Michelle Raynor, thanks so much for coming on the program. Greatly appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so let's talk about this now. Early voting has already started, so definitely if you're in District 70, whether it's voting for Michelle or helping her out, whether it's phone banking or texting, definitely go to her website and help her out. And Michelle, before we start the interview, what is the website?
It is www.michelleforflorida.com, and Michelle has one L.
Okay, so definitely go to that website and check her out because time is ticking right now.
Yes.
The election day is August 18th, so definitely help her out. So, Michelle, for the viewers that don't know much about you, can you tell them a little bit about you before we start?
Yeah, no, I was born and raised in Pinellas County. I am a civil rights attorney and criminal defense attorney. I'm a community activist. Before I became an attorney, I was an aide to former Senator Arthenia Joyner, who, if you know anything about Florida politics, she is legendary, a civil rights icon. So I've been taught by the best, and I have been just doing work around civil rights and equality for all and equity for all people. And so this was kind of the next natural progression.
Can you tell the viewers a little bit about why you want to run for a Florida House District 70?
Yeah, so I think right now we're in a place where we need to have bold and audacious leadership. I think that, you know, especially with the coronavirus, we have seen what a lack of leadership looks like. Folks who are unable to make decisive decisions and people-focused decisions, and who put profit or political interest over people. And that's, you know, that's not who I am. I've committed my whole life to people, to making things better for folks. My parents have always taught me too much is given, much is required. So if you are coming, you know, if you're coming along, you have a duty to make the road easier for people behind you. And so right now, I think that we are in an affordable housing crisis, specifically within District 70. We are in a healthcare crisis. So I think we have to really address healthcare. We have an unemployment system that is working as it was designed to work, not effectively. And we have an education crisis, and we have a criminal justice crisis. And I think that all of these things are intersectional. And I think that, you know, I know that I am the only candidate that's running in our field that has that experience to be able to deal with these issues. And I think that we need to make sure that we have folks who are not going to be able to be bought and sold, who are going to continue to do this work and are going to be able to speak truth to power.
Right. This is Michelle Raynor here on Fire Breathing Rob. So studying your district, it is a fairly big district. It has been gerrymandered over the years. Can you tell the viewers the demographics of the district, where it is? I know we talked about Clearwater, Pinellas County, but the whole district is huge.
So so the district encompasses South St. Petersburg, which is in Pinellas County, a sliver of Manatee to North Sarasota, and a pocket of Hillsborough County. So it's literally water and bridges that connect all of these counties together. But it's also the very definition of gerrymandering. So I think that that's why it's important to have folks who are going to be in the House that are going to understand redistricting and understanding you know, what that means and the impact that it's going to have on our state, and specifically within District 70.
So obviously with this campaign, it's totally different than any campaign in modern history since probably 1918 when we had the last pandemic. How has your campaign dealt with this pandemic? Because, you know, you can't go on the ground, you can't go and shake hands, really talk to people. I know, and we talked about earlier that I saw one of your fundraisers that you did on Zoom, and that's great, but it is still really hard to get the word out there, especially being a first-time candidate. So how have you dealt with that?
I mean, so we have a really robust mail plan. We are about, out communicating our opponents. So we have a robust mail plan. We have people who are phone banking all day and all night, really, literally all day and all night. So we do go door to door, but we don't actually have conversations. We actually just lit drop. So people get that touch from us. And then I personally call back the people that we've lit dropped, and I will talk with them. And even if it's a message, I think that there's something there that can be said for that. And then we also are running a really digital, a robust digital campaign as well. So we have a lot of digital as well. And so really we have to make the difference, because there are two Michelles on the ballot, and there is a very big difference between us. And I am, so we always say run with Rayner. You're going to run with Rayner, with the Raynor last name on the ballot, Raynor, 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 so it's very like Rayner. So, but yeah, so it's very, but yeah, I think we really dealt with, like, should we knock doors with a mask? And I just felt it was a little irresponsible to do that. There's so much that we don't know about COVID. There's so much we don't know how exactly it's transmitted there, and so we just really wanted to make sure that we are putting people's health first,
What are the constituents telling you as far as most important issues in the district?
I mean, they're concerned. And like I said earlier, Rob, I think it's all about it being intersectional. And I think that, folks are housing insecure. They are job insecure right now. Small businesses are the backbone of our state and of the district. And, right now, folks are still trying to make sure that they can support their families. There's healthcare concerns as well. People can't afford to get sick. They can't afford to miss work. And so you're hearing a lot of those issues. And then education. I think parents are concerned about brick and mortar e-learning. Parents are concerned about not having the access and that they need for the digital divide and being able to learn. So yeah, I mean, it's really difficult right now.
Will you commit to, if you do get to the legislature, to
pass?
When you get to the legislature, we'll edit that part out. When you get to the legislature, Michelle, will you commit to passing Medicaid? Because that was something that was, I loved Andrew Gillum, but that was one of his huge platform plans. And I believe he won, that they rigged that election, but that's just my opinion. That was one of his big platform plans, to get Medicaid expansion for 800,000 needy Floridians all across the state. And especially in a pandemic, I don't understand why this crazy whacked out governor hasn't put the legislature back into session to pass stuff like Medicaid,
because they believe in profits. They believe in profits over people. And I believe in people over profits. And that is the fundamental difference. We have a governor that is pandering to Donald Trump and wanting to make Donald Trump happy, and versus doing the will of the people. And I do think the legislature should have been called back into special session. I do believe that we need to get to work on Medicaid. I think that we need to get to work on a short-term plan to provide some type of relief for folks, some type of, comfort and security for them with regard to healthcare. When you literally have people saying, well, if I get sick with COVID, like that, there's just I'm just going to get sick. And then that's like, where do we live? Like, why is this? It's unconscionable. And so, but that's what happens when you have folks who put profit over people. And that's never the way that it should be designed.
It's disgusting, honestly, what's happening in the state in general. So I hope you get in there. And also, not just you, when you get in there, I should say.
Yes.
Besides you, Michelle, we need to elect these other progressives, such as re-electing Anna, re-electing Jessica Harrington, who is in a nearby district near you. We need to get more.
She's up for election. She's actually, so it's Jamie Grant, and she's he's the modern day author of the poll tax. Yeah. And, we need Jessica Harrington. Not only is she a teacher, but she's a voice that's speaking truth to power. You have Jasmine Rogers Shaw on the other coast. You have Angie Nixon in Duval County. You have Omari Hardy. You have Chevron Jones that we need in the Senate.
Yes.
We have all of these people who are proven fighters speaking truth to power, and that we need to have these type of people in the legislature to push forward the things for Florida that makes Florida work for everybody. If Florida is working for a small group of people, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
Well, Chevron Jones, and I'm sure you heard of this because you're big in politics. He was trying to donate blood. They wouldn't let him donate blood because
Yeah.
he's gay. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, what the hell is
And
going on in
that's a
this
federal
friggin' state?
policy. That's a federal policy and law that
Oh,
we
I didn't
have.
know that. I
Yeah,
thought
that's
that
a
was a Florida. Oh,
it's a federal policy and law that we have. And so when you talk about these, like, people are like, oh, you can't donate blood. That's a small thing. No, it's not. Because if you will let that injustice slide, you'll let anything slide.
I have talked to a couple of people that live in your neck of the woods. I was told that there was some dirty politics against you. And I don't know if you want to discuss that. That's totally up
We're
to you.
here. Go ahead. Ask away.
Yeah. So, well, what is your take on that? I mean, to me, and I'll get your opinion in a second, if someone's playing dirty politics, it's usually because they're down or because they think they're going to lose the race.
I 100% agree. So there have been a couple of things with dirty politics. One's towards me, one towards one of my other opponents. And I feel this is the way I feel. If you got to lean into dirty politics, if you got to send attack mailers, if you got to question folks, who they love and their commitment to their communities, that lets me know you have no platform, you have no track record. I haven't had to do that throughout this campaign, and there's plenty to talk about with my other opponents. There's plenty that we could have real conversations about, but I choose to use the time that I have with you, Rob, and with other folks to talk about the work that I've done, the work that I'm going to continue to do in Tallahassee, and why I am the most qualified person that is running in this race. And so to me, it's a dog whistle to let me know, oh, you don't really have a lot going on. And it's sad because it shouldn't be. If we want to go toe-to-toe on the issues, we want to go toe-to-toe on the track records, do that. But you can't go toe-to-toe on the track record when you have none.
Right. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yes.
Michelle, you are a dynamo. You are dynamic. You are amazing. And I do appreciate you coming on. We're going to move on to the next question. What 3 bills would you pass first when elected to the Florida House?
So one of the things I think, and Anna Escamani and I have talked about this, dealing with Florida unemployment. We need to do a complete, the best way for me to say it, I'm a criminal defense attorney, we need to do a complete autopsy on the unemployment system. We need to assess where we went wrong, and I think we know where we went wrong. We need to make sure that we can pass legislation to streamline it. Need to make sure we can pass legislation that people have access to more money than $275 a week, and that they're able to stay on unemployment a longer time. So that's number one. Number two, when I think about affordable housing and housing insecurity, we have folks that we have outdated landlord tenant laws on the books. We need to review those laws, and we need to look at how we're making them more worker and working family friendly. We need to also make sure that tenants have a bill of rights so they know what's going on. But we also need to work with our community partners and industry partners to make sure that we can have affordable housing. And then the third thing is I think it's always going to come back to education, right? It's always going to come back to we need to fully fund public schools, and not fully fund and appropriately fund, equitably fund public schools. We need to make sure that there are wraparound services within the schools. So when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, it's not this buzzword that sounds good, but we're actually making sure there are wraparound services. So if a kid does get suspended, he or she is not going to the criminal justice system, or maybe they're not getting suspended. Maybe there's a social worker that can kind of help mom and dad to figure out what's going on in their home, or grandma, grandpa to figure out what's going on in the home. So those are the first 3 priorities that I'm looking at.
I agree with everything you said 100%. I want to talk about criminal justice reform because that is your neck of the woods. So let's talk about that. You brought up Amendment 4 earlier on in the broadcast. What can we do as far as Amendment 4 to get that passed? And also, what other ideas do you have for criminal justice reform?
So when we think about Amendment 4 is a self-executing statute, meaning all the people did was had to vote for it, and it should have been automatic. And so now we're going to have to fight to get language to make it automatic, and we're going to fight to see what we can do with regard to Jamie Grant's bill. So that's number one, and it's going to be a fight, and it's going to come back up again. The other part of it is that we also have to make sure when we think about, criminal justice reform, there's issues with cash bail There's issues with minimum mandatory sentencing. There's issues with juvenile diversion and school to prison pipeline. So I think that there's so many ways to go, and it's not just issues that are siloed. But I think if we can deal with juvenile diversion and the school to prison pipeline, that then opens up doors to look at, you know, minimum mandatory sentencing. That ends up looking at doors of cash bail and what that looks like, the cash bail system within the state of Florida. So I think that, you know, one, we're going to be fighting the Amendment 4 fight. We believe that. And we need to have a strong voice that's going to do that. And number two, we're going to be looking at diversionary issues and school to prison pipeline issues.
Right. So with Black Lives Matter on the scene right now, and this has been going on for years upon years on end, you know, you are friendly with Benjamin Crump, so you know these stories as well as I do. What happened with Trayvon Martin, we look at what happened in Ohio with Tamir Rice. We look at Markeis McGlockton, who you were involved in that case also. So with all that said, what can we do to really hold the police accountable? My thing is, you know, people talk about more training. I kind of think that's silliness. We need to get more people of color on the force, more women on the force, more mental health professionals involved. And I think, you know, you look at George Floyd. Why wasn't there a mental health professional there when he said he had anxiety issues? That could have relieved that whole situation. And community policing in general. I know I said a lot there, but do you agree with some of those policies, or maybe you have some better ones?
So definitely, I agree with the community policing model. And, you know, I know when we say defunding, I have parents who are older, they're like, I don't want to hear about defunding, because they, in their mind, means like you try to take away the police. And I don't think anyone's trying to do that, but I think that we have to divest to reinvest. We have to reimagine our relationship with law enforcement. We have to reimagine the way that we deal with folks within law enforcement. And so one of the things that I think about is that even in St. Pete, Chief Holloway said, listen, instead of me hiring more, new officers, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to invest into social workers and mental health, crisis counselors. So if someone's calling, a police officer shouldn't have to respond to a Baker Act, a mental health crisis. They shouldn't have to do that. But you have people who are trained to do that, to be able to respond to that. So I think it's about looking at the divesting to reinvestment. But I also think about it's also partnering with our cities and municipalities, because they're the ones that set the budget for for the law enforcement agencies. So partnering with them and making sure that we can support them in the legislature as well.
I agree. I want to talk about, with the last few questions, Markeis McGlockton, you were involved with that case. You were the attorney for the parents, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that, can you give the viewers, I know that was a big case in the state of Florida and throughout 2018. Can you give the viewers a little bit that don't know about that case, a little synopsis about that and what had happened? And, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah, sorry. So essentially, Markeis and his partner, his girlfriend, they had pulled up to a store. The store is actually about a mile from my parents' house. So I've known the store. I actually grew up going to the store. And there is a handicap spot, and I put that in quotations for folks who may be listening via podcast. And it's a handicap spot, but it's a spot that everyone pulls into. And so they pulled into, they left the car running. I think Brittany stayed in the car. She was like, if someone does need this spot, I can move. But literally, he walked in the store with his son. And there's a man named Michael Draco who came from across the street. And apparently he policed the spot. He was a wannabe cop. He policed the spot, pulls in. And I think the ironic part is he didn't pull into an actual spot. So pulls in, starts walking around Brittany's car, starts yelling and screaming at her. She has her other two children in the car, babies. So she gets out hey, what's going on? It was so bad that people were hearing the commotion, and they were like, hey, there's an argument, out here, this, that, and the third. So they go outside, and Markeis goes outside, and he sees this man up on his partner. Yeah. And like any person would do defending someone they love, he pushes them back, to create space, get back. Markeis immediately backs up. The man pulls out a gun, shoots him in broad daylight in front of his child. He dies in front of his child. His killer was walked around for 25 days because of the stand your ground law. The sheriff said he could not arrest him because it was a stand your ground situation. And I vehemently disagreed, didn't think stand your ground was the proper application to this particular set of facts. And,
Well, Michelle, he was walking away. I watched the tape. So
yes.
he went back after he was shot. He actually was walking that way, and he got shot, and he walked back into the store. And
Yeah,
we're gonna put
and
the tape in this.
collapsed and died in front of his 5-year-old son.
Yeah.
And, we actually worked with the family, worked in the community, worked with the prosecutors to actually get an arrest, and then ultimately led to conviction. But it was, Markeis's father, Michael McGlockton, said this to me. He said, I never thought that the law stand your ground would actually come and touch my house.
It's crazy.
And it did. And, that's that's where we're at. And I think I've never been prouder of the work that I've done, and I've said it publicly, and I'll say it again. Of course I'm running to win, but I think standing with that family in like their darkest moment has probably one of the things that I'm most proud of. And the crazy part about it is, Rob, is that this is the work that I do all the time. This is the work that I do when cameras are on. This is the work that I do when I'm kept away from my family, because people, for whatever reason, feel like they can count on me, and they call me when things are not going well. And I've gotten out of bed at 2:00 in the morning, gotten met with some mom, her kid's been arrested. She didn't know what's going on. And I think that we have to have that type of leadership, and not only just bold and audacious, but compassionate leadership as well.
Yeah. What advice would you give to people like me that are progressive, that want to fight and get in this fight?
So I think that, allyship is so important, and
Yeah.
comradeship is so important. One, I think that you have to find your capacity, what that looks like for you. So not everyone's going to be out in the street, but what if you have a talent, Rob, what you're doing now? I think that this is part of being part of the movement. You're using your platform that you have, but having guests like myself and other folks on here speaking truth to power, using your platform. For my wife, she's not, COVID is here. So she has, a suppressed immune system. So she can't be out like a lot of people, but she is a digital strategist. So what does she do? She uses her talent to, whether it's creating flyer or digital media for, organizations, and she gives that to them for free, right? She does it pro bono. So that's her part of being in part of the movement space. Other parts is if you want to be a legal observer, saying, listen, hey, and you don't have to be a lawyer to be a legal observer. There's trainings for that. And that's just folks who can attend, protest, and who can watch and make sure that people are going to get safe. And if someone's getting arrested, you're able to record it and write down what you see. There's other times where you can volunteer with an organization. So and I say all these things to give you all these ideas, because it's really about, wherever you can, whatever your capacity is, whatever your talent is, or as my mom would say, wherever God puts your hand to, wherever you God put your hand to, that you do that, and you use that, and you make it better. You use that space to make it better, and in whatever way that it looks like. I'm not expecting everyone to be out in the street. I am in the street. I do it, but I'm not expecting everyone to be in the street. What I am expecting is folks to find what makes them passionate, find what they're good at, and lend it into the service of uplifting all of us.
When you get to Tallahassee, what would you do to help teachers besides, we do need school funding, as you spoke about, but you have like a 13-year teacher that's making $47,000, and then you have a teacher that comes in that's a first-year teacher making the same thing. And then if the teachers go on strike, like they should go now, I would support them 100% because of how this is so unsafe. They get fired, they lose their accreditation. I know, it's crazy. So what would you do to help teachers? Go ahead, Michelle.
So one of the things I think is that we have to increase the funding at least to 50, or increase their salaries to 50,000. And I think that 50,000 is still even low, but I think that we also need to make sure that there are real bonuses for teachers to get, because I know, for example, when my wife was teaching in education, and she was a teacher, she was a highly effective teacher, was a leader within the 8th grade. I think it was the 8th grade leader for like the 8th grade teachers, also was the social and emotional learning champion. Mm-hmm. And she was entitled to a bonus, and if they were late with her bonus, and then B, they taxed her. I'm like, yeah. And like, so, I think that we have to have real bonuses for our teachers, but also I think it's that baseline of if you have tenure teachers, 13-year teachers who are been highly effective, just people like Jessica Harrington, teacher of the year, like, it's not just like, I just go to work and come home and whatever, but really pour their heart and soul. We got to make sure that they are appreciated. I think that what makes you appreciative is the amount of money that you pay your teachers.
Tallahassee just keeps raiding that affordable housing fund every year. What would you do to stop that? Is there something you can do to stop that? Because,
I mean,
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, you have to stop. You actually, a budget is a moral document, right? So one of the things I think you have to do is you have to make sure that it's fully funded. The other part is you have to look at appropriations of where you can supplement these organizations that are working within affordable housing, also standing with your counties and municipalities to make sure that they get what they need in order to have affordable housing. I don't want to get too wonky into affordable housing because we could go.
No worries. But the thing is, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michelle. My thing is that with, not a lot of Democrats in the Florida House, how can we keep that money in there? Because we know that the Republicans in the Senate and in the House want to raid that money, and they've been doing it for years upon end.
This year was the first time that it passed, but it did not. It got the governor's veto pen. So, once again, it's, having those bipartisan consensus, but then we got to work hard to make sure that it doesn't get the governor's veto pen.
We see in the state of Florida that people that have disabilities, whether it's young children or adults, if they have autism, cerebral palsy, the list goes on, they can't get any services down here. And some of these kids and adults die without getting these services. What would you do as far as being in the Florida House to try to get some help for these people? Because it's really disgraceful how we treat people with disabilities in this state.
Listen, I think that we have to make sure that our families are able to get the med waiver and that they're able to get the monies that they need, and that needs to be a priority. So I think we have to introduce legislation stating the same. We also have to make sure that we appropriate monies to organizations and state agencies to make sure that parents are able to access that, and that when we appropriate that money, that there are accountability metrics in place. There are accountability metrics in place to make sure people are getting it. Because what we're finding is when we have folks with disabilities, a lot of people who are involved in whether the disability is autism, whether it's a physical disability or a mental health disability, we find that it's like a shell game with money, right? Like, oh, you go over here. Oh, you got to jump to this. There needs to be a streamlined process. Again, like, it's not hard. Like, we literally are some one of the most advanced countries on earth, but yet when it comes to actually helping people, we're in the dark ages where, we, what I mean? Like, it should be a streamlined process that if a parent has a child with a disability, or if there's an adult with a disability and they have a guardian, they should be able to go to location. The process is the same and be done with it. And I think that once again, Rob, we're going to have to do an overhaul and an autopsy of a lot of these agencies, because we're spending money just to spend money, but it's not being effective and getting it to the people who need it the most.
We need to overhaul the whole Florida government in general. But that's besides the point. Michelle Raynor, thank you so much for coming on. Before you go, can you just give like a closing statement to the viewers?
Yes, well, I thank you so much, Rob, for having me. I enjoyed myself. I'm Michelle Raynor. I am a civil rights attorney, community activist, running to actually bring change to the Florida House. I'm very proud to say I am probably one of the only candidates in this race that has not taken dark money, that has not taken money from special interests, and that this is a people-powered campaign. And people say, well, you've raised $97,000, and really the majority of it came from people. It didn't come from special interest corporations, people, to be bought and sold. And so I'm really proud of that fact. We're running a really aggressive grassroots people power campaign, and I'm hoping to march on to victory on August 18th and get across that finish line and start doing more work for the people of Florida.
Well, we hope you do, because if you get to the House, you're going to be a Democratic superstar in there for sure. Michelle, thanks so much. Let's definitely do this again down the road. I really appreciate your time, and it means a lot.
Thank you. It means the world. Thank you so much.
All right.